Hi everyone, and welcome to the next session in the series Apex Programming for Beginners. So in the last session that we did, we discussed about writing Apex code, the basics of Apex code. We have already discussed about different data types in Apex. We have seen how do we create methods, how do we create class, how do we call the Apex methods. We have tried writing small snippet of Apex code in developer console. We tried debugging the Apex code. We tried checking the logs. So a lot of those things. So now you are familiar with at least how to write an Apex code. We understand the class method structure of the Apex code. We understand the basic data types, etc. Well, but the example that we did, in our last session, the activity that we did, that was primarily about primitive data type. So we did not do anything with the Salesforce records. Now what we are going to do now is we are basically going to start working with the data, because when we are working on Salesforce, okay, so we were discussing about yeah. So whenever we are working with Apex, most of the times we will be working with records and not just primitive data types. Now to work with records, there are two things that we will usually do. Either we will have to retrieve the records from the server, or we will have to send the data back to the server, or do some updates, etc. So there are two things that we are going to discuss today, which will help you work with those things. First one is the DML statements. DML statements are basically the ones, DML statements basically are the statements which you use in your Apex code to make changes to the database. Data manipulation language, we will talk more about it in a while. And the other thing that we will discuss is SOQL, which is the Salesforce object query language. So this is the query language which is used, which works in Salesforce, and we use it a lot to retrieve the data from the database. So to query any data from the database, we'll be using SOQL. To work with updating, inserting, deleting records, we will use DML statements. So let's get into the details of it. We will start with the SOQL, Salesforce object query language. So this is the language which we use to query data from the database. So if you want to retrieve, say, account records, you can basically use SOQL query to retrieve account records, and after that you can do all sort of logic execution on that record. And after that, if you want to update the record back into the system, or if you want to maybe delete that particular record, or if there's a new record you want to insert into the system, for that we will be using DML statements. So we'll get into DML a little later. First of all, let's talk about SOQL, Salesforce object query language, and I'll primarily talk about the syntaxes. So SOQL basically lets you query the record, and the result of the query will be either it would return one single record, or it will return a list of records. So the result of the query can be then stored in a specific data type, in a specific variable. Okay, and now it's very obvious that the variable that you define to store the result needs to be a S object data type variable. So for example, if I am querying accounts, and I feel that the query can return, say, 100 accounts, then I should use a variable of type list of account to store all these account records, because there will be multiple account records which will be returned from that particular query. Okay, so that is the thing. So let's start understanding syntax. It's very simple actually. It's not very difficult to write these queries. Yeah, you just need to be familiar with some of the syntaxes, and then you should be able to write the queries the way you want, and you should be able to retrieve the data whenever you want in your Apex code. So let's begin with the simple query. Simple query, as I said, for those who are familiar with SQL, will find it very, very similar to the syntax. Is going to be very similar to what you may have already seen in SQL. So and those who are not familiar with SQL, you also do not need to worry, because it's a very simple syntax. You will understand it very quickly. So basically whatever data you want to retrieve, from which object and which fields you want to retrieve, that is all you need to know. All right, and this is the syntax. So if we talk about this, so simple query, this is a syntax. So you use the keyword select and the keyword from. Okay, rest everything that you see here is, this is the object name and these are the fields that you want to retrieve. Okay, so as simple as that. So from which object and which fields you want to retrieve. So if I want to retrieve ID, name, industry from account, I would simply write this: select ID, name, industry. The important thing for you is you have to use all API names. You cannot be using the labels. So in Salesforce, if you have created fields or objects, you would have seen that there is an API name and then there is the label of that particular component, be it a field or an object. Okay, so you will always be required to use the API names. You cannot be using the labels. So these are all API names. These are all standard fields, and this is account is also a standard object. But if there was a custom object here, let's say instead of account there was a custom object, then of course the API name would have contained a $_c at the end of the object name. So you will have to be careful about using the API names. Otherwise your query will not return, or query will start throwing an error. It would say that it does not recognize the field or the object that you are talking about. Okay, so that is there. Now we have this is the syntax. This is the simple syntax for any query. So if you just try straight away just want to write a query to retrieve some fields from an object, all that you need to do is you simply need to go and write the select statement this way. Okay, now in this, if you notice, in this query there is no condition, nothing. It's just a simple plain query. Yeah, so this is the structure of the query. Now let's try and understand a few more types of queries that we can write. Okay, so the next one which we're going to talk about is a query with a where clause. Okay, so in case the previous example was just you had just written a query, select ID, name, industry from account. So it would basically retrieve all account records, right? Most of the times we do not write our query like this. We do not want to retrieve everything. So if there are like 500,000 accounts, I don't want to query all 500,000 at once or something like that, right? Most of the times, if you're trying to work with some records, you may have a clause, a condition that you want to put. Okay, so here you can look at how do we put the condition. So initial part is pretty much same. So this part is pretty much same, right? But after that, after you have written that much of query, then there is a where clause that you can add, and after putting the where clause, you can put your condition. So whatever is your condition. So like here I have added two conditions, where name like this and mailing city equals California, right? So these are basically two conditions. There is a AND operator which I've used here. You could have used OR operator also, or you could have used mailing city not equals to this. So AND, OR, and NOT, all those operators can be used if you have got multiple conditions. So that's how you basically construct a query with a where clause. So simple query and the query with the where clause. All right, very simple, very straightforward to work with this. Now let's look into the next one. The next one is an order by query. What is order by query? Order by query basically refers to a query where you are trying to sort the sort the results of the query in a certain order. Let's say in ascending order or descending order. That is what order by means. All right. So this order by query will let you, let's say, get the results based on, let's say, account name. Let's say you are retrieving a list of accounts and you want the results to be sorted based on account name and in ascending order. Okay, so that can be done, or you may want it in descending order. So this is the syntax for order by queries. So if you see here, you can for order by, simply you can, towards the end of the query, you just need to write order by. Now which field you want to use for ordering, setting the order, or for sorting it, which field you want to use, and you can use ascending or descending here. This I would let you know the exact keyword that we use for ascending. I think I am slightly forgetting that exact word, and I don't want you to basically do it wrong. I'll put it here, but your syntax is you use order by, which field you want to use to sort, and ascending or descending, that you can define. So that's the order by query. The next one is a limit query. Limit query basically is required when you want to restrict your results to a certain number. So for example, you just want 100 records to appear in your query. You don't want all the records to appear. So there can be, say, 5,000 records which meet the criteria. You have put a criteria, there are 5,000 records which meet the criteria, but you want 100 records only. Now why would we need this? What sort of scenarios, etc.? So let's think, let's say I'm trying to query a list of opportunities. So we'll try and club everything here. Okay, I'm trying to retrieve a list of opportunities, and possibly you guys can write this query and maybe share it in the comment, and I would see who has basically constructed this query properly. So I want a list of all the opportunities where the stage is closed one, so basically the 1 opportunities. Okay, and I want the top 5 opportunities based on the revenue. Okay, so I want list of opportunities where the stage is closed one, and I only want the top 5 opportunities based on the revenue on the opportunity, right? Or the amount, basically, not revenue, sorry, the amount of the opportunity. So now here what we will use, we certainly need to use, so if we have to work on this particular query, I'm not going to write the entire query here for you. I would want you to try and write it, and if you want, you can feel free to share it in the comment. So now when we are writing this query, so what all will be required? So we definitely need to understand which fields we want to query. So we will write select, so whichever fields we want to query. We want the fields to be queried from opportunity object. We have a condition, we are only querying opportunities where the stage is closed one, and on top of that we just want the top 5 opportunities based on amount. Now here we will be using both these things, order by and limit. So order by, what we can do, we can sort the opportunities, the list that is being written, we can sort it using the amount in descending order. So the highest amount comes at the top, and after that if I also club limit functionality with it, so if it is sorted based on the revenue, the maximum, not revenue again, sorry, I'm getting into the revenue field, which is an account field. Basically I'm talking about amount. So if it is sorted by amount, the opportunity with the maximum amount will be at the top, and that's how it's going to go. And then if I limit my results to 5, then it is obviously going to give me top 5. So that is how it is. Okay, I'm not writing the complete query here. Maybe you can try it on your own. So yeah, so if you see these queries or these different operators you can use to construct your query the way you want, and then you can have your logics executed that way. Another one is a count query. Count query is a very simple query. Basically it allows you to count the values available in a particular field. So for example, if you want to do a count of contact records, so this is the syntax. Basically you do you basically this is what you use here. So within this bracket you will need to use the field name for which you want to do the count. So if you want to check, let's say you have a field on contact called D&D checkbox. Okay, Okay, let's let it not be checkbox. I think checkbox will have a different challenge. Let's say they had, yeah, let's say I just want to quickly check how many contacts have got a billing city. Okay, how many contacts have got a valid a value in the billing city, how many contacts do not have the value, or something like that. So now what I can do, I can quickly do a select count of, here inside this I can put billing city. Okay, so now what it will do, it will give me a count of account records, contact records where there is a value in the billing city. So that's how it works. All right. Now the next one is group by. Group by can be clubbed with the count in case we are talking about a pick list. Let's say we have a pick list, we have contacts from 4 different countries, and I just want to get a count of how many records from each country. Then what we can do, we can simply use the count functionality with group by. Okay, what does group by do? Group by will basically group the count based on the pick list value. So here this example talks about select lead source count from lead, group by lead source. So what will this do? This will basically, if you have got 100 leads, let's say, and if you have got 2 different lead source, let's say there is one of your lead source is web and the other lead source is email, let's say. Now it would basically return you the count of how many leads you have from which lead source. That's what it returns. So it basically gives you a summary of how many records are associated to which type. So this works well with your pick list. So because in pick list there will be like multiple values, and every record will have one of those values. So that's how it works. So for contact, again, as I said, if I have contacts from 4 different countries and I quickly want to check a count of how many contacts I have from which country, I can write it this way. So I can basically write select whatever fields and let's say select country, count of country or count of ID from contact group by country or billing country, whatever it is. Yeah, so the field name has to be correct. So that's the group by query, and then there is having query. Now what is this having query? Having query is kind of again a criteria that you're defining, but this criteria is based on an aggregate sort of thing. Okay, so count is basically an aggregate function which is available. Now if you want to put your criteria, so earlier in the we discussed about the where clause. Where clause also lets you add a criteria to the query and return the records, right? You were able to add condition with where clause, but with where clause the condition that we were adding was basically on the value itself. Now if I want to define a criteria, if I want to check the criteria on the aggregate, so if I want to say that, okay fine, show me only those categories or select name count ID from account group by name having count ID greater than 1, right? So here what what it would show basically is in case it works pretty much combined with group by. So let's go to the previous one. Okay, so let's say here in this particular example, we will try and understand having clause with this particular example. So let's say here we have 5 different lead sources. Okay, lead source 1, lead source 2, lead source 3, lead source 4, lead source 5. Okay, in this query, and this query, what is it gonna do? It's gonna return the number of records, the count of records per lead source, right? So let's say lead source 1, there are 1000 records, lead source 2, there are 2000 records, lead source 3, there are 1800 records, lead source 4, there are 1500 records, lead source 5, there are 400 records. Okay, so now it's gonna basically, this query is gonna return this, right? Now in addition to this, if you want to put one more condition that only show me the result for records where the count of records is more than 500. So if I put that condition, then it will only show you these four. It will not show you this one, right? Now, how do you put that? For that, you will have to add the having clause here. Having count of ID or name, whatever, greater than 500. Got it? So if you do this, yeah. So if you do this with having clause, it's gonna return only the aggregated value, where the aggregated value is as per what you have defined in the having clause. So this is the difference between a having clause and the usual where clause that we were using. And then there is offset query. Now, what is the offset query? Offset query is something which is again very useful. So, offset query, what does it do? It basically, so if there's a query, let's say you have written a query. Sorry. Yeah, so if you have written a query, and this query is returning 500 records. Okay. Now, with offset, what you can do, you can skip some records and then start your results to show from the next number. For example, out of these 500, whatever 500 records are shown, I want to skip the first 100 records and see. So 1 to 100, I don't want to see these records. I want to see the records from 1 to 200. Okay. Now here what you can do, you can simply add one more clause called offset. You can say offset 100, let's say. So in the query, if you write offset 100, it is going to skip the first 100 records and show you the result after that. Okay. Now, why and where it can be used? It can be used any place where you are trying to show, say, the values or the data in chunks, etc. So, for example, a very simple example can be when you are doing pagination. So, first page will only have 1 to 10 result or 10 records. Second page will have 11 to 20. So, the query that is running at the time of showing the records in second page need to offset the first 10 records. It should show results as 11 to 20, correct? Something that you would usually find when you are doing a Google search. The first page will have, say, 1 to 50 or 1 to 100 or 1 to 20, whatever, based on what you have set up. So now the second page, when it is loading, at that time it is only showing you the results starting from the next number based on whatever. So let's say first page was showing 1 to 100, the second page starts from 101. So that is the thing. So that functionality can be worked with using offset. Okay. All right, so that's about the generic syntaxes of SOQL. Now we will talk about relationship queries in SOQL. Relationship query means when you are trying to write a query and retrieve the data either from the parent. So if there's a parent object and if there is a child object. So let's say there is account and this account is related to another object, contact. Okay. So there's a one-to-many relationship. So this is parent and this is child, right? So there's a relationship here. Now relationship queries basically mean when I'm writing a query on account, when you're writing a query on the account object. So you would have understood whenever we are writing SOQL query, we are writing the query on one object, right? So if I am writing the query on the account object and I'm trying to retrieve data from contact object, that can be a relationship query. Another way can be, so this is going to be basically writing a query here and then retrieving the data from contact in this query. So this is one option. Another option can be you're writing a query on the contact object and you want to retrieve the data from the parent in that query. So if I'm writing a query on the contact, but I want to get the data from the parent on this. For example, I want to get a list of contacts and along with the list of contacts, I also want to see the industry of the account with which they are associated. So that can be one case. Another case can be I'm writing a query on account along with the query that I'm writing for the account. I also want to retrieve a list of all the contacts which are associated to those accounts. So yeah, so these are two possibilities when we are talking about relationship queries. So first of all, you'll have to understand parent to child relationship. You should know which one is the parent, which one is the child. If you know that, and if you know your requirement, whether you're writing the query on the parent or on the child and what you need, then you will be able to use these syntaxes. So I'm going to talk about both types of syntaxes. So first of all, let's try to understand the child to parent, because this is comparatively simpler. So child to parent is very simple. So child to parent means I'm writing a query on the contact and I want to retrieve the parent's values. For example, industry of the account or website of the account, and I am writing the query on the contact. So the syntax for that is pretty simple. So what you can do is you can simply write select contact dot account dot name. So this can be your So this is how you can basically, this is how you can write your fields. You can retrieve the fields from the parent. So contact dot account dot name. So this contact is not exactly required. Okay, you can simply write you can directly also write account dot name, right? So basically the child, parent and the field on the parent. So this is the parent field and the field on the parent. All right. Now if it's a custom relationship, now because it's a standard relationship, account is the one, the name that you would use. If it's a custom relationship, your custom relationship can have a name and that relationship name needs to be used. So there you will be using a _r. So let's say if it was a custom field, then it would have been account _r dot field name, something like this. Got it? Okay. So now simple. So it's pretty simple. So all that you have to do is you just have to use the parent and sorry. Give me one moment, let me get rid of this. Okay. Yeah, so you are basically able to retrieve the parent values using like account.name, etc. Now let's talk about the other scenario. The other scenario is parent to child. So when you're writing a query on the parent and you want to retrieve the values of the child. So this is going to be slightly more tricky because here one parent can be associated to multiple child records also, right? So it's not going to be very simple, straightforward, something like this. What you have to do, so if I'm retrieving account, now along with account, I am retrieving a list of child records, so it cannot fit into one single field. So here it is more about a nested field or a nested query that you write inside the query. So the main query, and inside that you will have a nested query written on the child object. Okay, so let's say I'm writing a query on account and I want to basically also retrieve the list from contacts. So that's how we are going to do it. So select name, so if you see here there is a nested query. So here there is a parent query and inside that there is a child query also. So this is the parent query, select name from account, that's the parent query, and this one is the child query inside it. So it's called a nested query actually. Yeah, this is the nested query. Okay, so you can basically, the way you are writing a field with a comma separator, you can same way you can write the nested query for any related object or related list, and it would basically then return you the result. So it would return a list of account names, and along with that it would return list of last name for that account. All right, so this is how it would work. Yeah, or this can be also written like this, but not exactly required. So this, you really do not need to use this contact dot last name. You can simply say last name from contacts. That's also fine. Okay, so that is about our SOQL queries. Now the next thing that we are going to talk about are the DML statements. DML statements will help you make changes to the database either using insert statement, update statement, delete statement, undelete statement, all those things. So let's quickly look into DML statements. The syntaxes here for DML statements are very simple. So yeah, this let's have this. Okay, so I have listed down two syntaxes here. So you can perform DML statement only with SObject type records, of course, because SObject variables with data type SObject will have records in those, and then you can basically go and perform your DMLs with that. So for example, this is a record, this is a variable that I've defined of type account, and I use the insert statement. So these are the DML statements which you can use. Insert, this should be update. Right? So it's a simple update statement. So what happens? So you can either work like this or you can work like this. You can basically define it like this. Okay. Now here, before updating this, in case you want to supply a value, let's say before this you wanted to say a dot industry equals something, okay, let's say education or whatever, and then you want to do an update. All right, so that ways you can use your DML statements. So anytime you have to make changes to the database, make changes to the records, or you want to create new records, you can use insert or update statement. Similarly, we have got other statements as well. Sorry, okay, so this example is, yeah, this example is correct actually. My bad. Yeah, the example is correct. So here, if you look into this piece of code, here what is happening, there is a new account record which is inserted here. The first statement here is insert, the account is inserted with this name. Okay, then what happens, then you write a query and you retrieve the record, okay, using the ID of that particular account record. You use a various statement, retrieve the record, then you update the billing city for that particular record, and then you perform a update statement. Got it? So initially, so if you look into this piece of code, so initially what we did, we just created a simple account record. Only thing that we supplied was the name of the account record. If you just perform an insert operation, there will be a new account record which will get created with this particular name, but it will not have any other values because we have just supplied the name. Now if we have the ID of that record, we retrieve the ID of the that particular record, then we can go and update any other fields in that particular record. So we have supplied a value for the billing city, and then we have updated the record. So now after the update operation, what will happen? Billing city, which was initially blank, will get updated to this San Francisco. Got it? Same way we have delete statement. For delete statement, it's going to be pretty simple, right? So you just need to you just need to you just need to simply use the delete statement along with the SObject data type. So it can be one single record, it can be multiple records. And same thing, I mean, for insert and update also, you can either work with a single record SObject, or you can work with bulk records or a list of records as well. So that's doable. There is undelete statement. Again, in undelete statement, you can retrieve the records which are temporarily deleted. So undelete is basically more of a concept that we have to understand. So usually in Salesforce, the moment we delete the record, it does not completely get deleted. It goes and sits in the recycle bin. So during that time, when the record is still there in the recycle bin and it waits in the recycle bin for some period of time, so there is a logic about, data storage also. If you have too many records, then the records which entered into the database or to the recycle bin first start getting cleared from there, or it waits in the recycle bin for some time before it gets cleared. So in case you have deleted any record by mistake, you can always go and restore those records. Okay, so that is the option. Now, so whenever a record is still in that situation where it is deleted but not permanently deleted, still sitting in the system, then you can obviously go and run the undelete operation. So undelete operation will basically restore the record. So that's what undelete is meant for. Then there is another important statement, which is the merge statement. Now what does the merge statement do? Merge statement will work with two records. So a merge statement would take two records and merge the second record to the first one. So the first record is the master record and the second record is the one which needs to be merged. Okay, so let's take this example. We'll look into this one. So we have defined a list of accounts. It will have two records. So one is Acme, yeah. So this is one record, and Acme Inc is one record, Acme is another record. So two records. Sorry, we have got these two records. Now we insert we perform an insert operation. What will happen? Both these records get into the system. Then what will happen? You are defining the first record as the master account, okay, the one with Acme Inc as name. That is your master account, and you are bringing up the other account record as the merge account. So this is the primary account, this is the secondary account record. Okay, this is just to show you this example. You can try to write this entire code in your developer console anonymous code window, and you can execute this as well. So once this has happened, what will happen? Now there are two account records or two variables. One is the master account variable, one is the merge account variable. This is going to be I'll use this as the primary record. Primary record means the one which will get retained after the merge, and the secondary record is the one which will get merged to the primary account record. So now what we are going to do, we are going to do the merge operation. So in the merge operation, as you can see now, in the merge operation, what we can see, we have a master account and then we have a merge account. Okay, so this master and merge is basically the names of these account records which we have taken from here. It could have been anything, but the point is the first record that you supply here is the primary record which would be retained, and this will be merged. Okay, so this is how it usually works with a merge operation. Right, now the next one that we have is an upsert operation. Upsert is a combination of update and insert. So while we were discussing about data loader, we discussed about it, the insert and update, and then there is another operation, upsert. So what does an upsert operation do? Upsert operation tries to figure out if the record already exists. If it does not exist, then it would go and create the record. If it exists, it will update the record. So that's what it does. So for upsert, this syntax can be pretty useful. So let's say you have got a list of account records and you want to perform an upsert here. Okay, you use say upsert this list and the field that you are trying to use as an external ID. So for upsert, an external ID is very important. external ID can be used to identify. So if you want your Apex or your DML statement to identify if the record is already existing in the system or not existing in the system, how will that happen? So for that to happen, it should take some field for reference, right? So whatever is your external ID field, now this has to be an external ID field again. So whatever is your external ID field that you are using, which of course needs to have unique values, it can use that particular field to check if there is already a record with the same value for this particular field. If there is already a record with the same value for this field, then it will consider it to be present and it will just go and update that record. Okay. But if there is no record existing in the system with the same value of this field, then it will consider that record is not existing in the system and it is going to insert that record. So that's about the upsert operation. So I think with that we are pretty much done with some of the very important basic concepts of writing SOQL queries and working with DML statements. Now in our next session we will start doing some example or some small exercises with this, because today we have understood a lot of these concepts. It would be good to do one or two small exercises to see and to bring these things to use. So yeah, we'll keep it here and I'll talk to you soon then. Thank you.